Hello and welcome to the history of Stargate Universe. Today's episode we're going to be covering Ronald Greer, and here we go. Ronald Greer is a Master Sergeant in the United States Marine Corps who was assigned to the Icarus Base. He is a member of a team sent and later trapped aboard the ancient vessel Destiny. Greer was born to Angela Greer and Reginald Greer. His father fought in the Gulf War, and after the war was an abusive father, locking Ronald in a closet as punishment, making him stack bricks only to kick them over, and at one point leaving him in the middle of a city and forcing him to walk home. The former has given him mild claustrophobia. He saved both his mother and father from a house fire. After the latter incident, his mother was presumably unharmed in the fire, while his father suffered severe burns that left him scarred on one side of his face. When he was in his late teen years, his father died of a brain infection while in Veterans Hospital. Greer joined the United States Marine Corps after he did not receive an athletic scholarship. He believed that by joining the military, he could make a difference. Dr. Nicholas Rush said that Greer was not among the men that he had approved to be on the exploration/military teams that would go through the gate on Icarus Base after the 9th chevron was dialed. Rush also believed that if not for the military, Greer would have gone to prison, or worse. 2009. At the time of the attack on the Icarus Base, Greer was awaiting court-martial for assaulting Colonel David Telford. He was released by Colonel Everett Young during the attack to help defend the base and evacuate the planet through the Stargate before it exploded. He was the second to last man to evacuate Destiny, just ahead of Young. On arrival, he and the rest of the crew were informed that they were on an unknown spaceship in an unknown region of space, billions of light years from home. When life support systems were failing and Dr. Nicholas Rush thought he had found a solution, Eli Wallace protested, believing that Rush's solution could destroy the ship. Greer held Rush at gunpoint, unwilling to let him make yet another decision that would hurt the Icarus personnel. Lieutenant Matthew Scott intervened and ordered Greer to lower his weapon, which he did. Rush tried his solution, but it had no effect on anything. When Destiny dropped out of FTL and dialed the Stargate to a planet with the necessary materials to repair the failing life support system, Greer was assigned to the team sent to explore it. He shot Jeremy Franklin on Rush's orders as Franklin was about to leave with their only ancient remote control. Greer then left to find Scott, who was lost in the desert. Greer found Scott and helped him get back to the gate with the lime needed to fix the life support system. During the lottery, his name was not chosen to escape the ship. When Sergeant Spencer, who was also not chosen, tried to argue that the shuttle could fit more, Greer quickly knocked him out with the butt of his rifle. Before things could get out of hand, he chose to remain alone in his quarters for the end, watching the star approaching through his window. A few weeks later, while Colonel Everett Young and Lieutenant Matthew Scott were on a mission to Hoth to replenish Destiny's water supply, he helped contain the dust bugs which had infested the ship, making a makeshift flamethrower to herd them. He managed to trap them in a closet, giving Lieutenant Tamara Johannesson time to fill a barrel of water to attract them. He helped carry the barrel to the gate and throw it through, disposing of the creatures. Several weeks later, when the International Oversight Advisory had developed a plan to bring the expedition home, he was locked up once more by Colonel David Telford, who had switched bodies with Colonel Everett Young. He encouraged Lieutenant Matthew Scott to rebel against Telford, knowing that Telford's rash actions could get them all killed. Though Scott was unwilling to do so, the situation was resolved by Dr. Nicholas Rush. Sometime later, he was part of the team that discovered the Destiny interface chair. Later, he discovered Sergeant Spencer's corpse when Spencer failed to report for duty. When the investigation eventually led to an informal trial, he suggested use of force to restore Lieutenant Everett Young's authority. This idea was turned down by Young himself. After Camille Ray was put in charge, she took him off of the active duty list. Greer believed that she did so out of suspicion that he killed Spencer. She didn't give him a straight answer, though he insisted that they would talk about it further. The situation was resolved when Spencer's death was revealed to be a suicide. A short while later, when Destiny was attacked by a Nakai mothership, Greer helped Lieutenant Matthew Scott defend the ship from the Nakai fighters using the ancient shuttle. A day later, the civilian personnel mutinied against the military, sealing them off in one section of the ship. Greer and Colonel Everett Young, using the ancient environmental suits, went onto the hull and re-entered the ship on the civilian side to unseal the doors and retake the ship. Greer was posted in the mess hall with Lieutenant Vanessa James to keep watch on the civilians. Once the mutiny was dealt with, the civilians were dismissed, though Greer felt that the issue would come up again. A week later, Destiny unexpectedly jumped out of FTL in the vicinity of an uncharted star with a single planet orbiting it. Greer accompanied the first team to visit the planet, and was the first to sample a kiwi-like fruit, despite objections that it could be poisonous. He then spent a month on the planet while the ship navigated around the star, helping to keep relations between the military and civilians amicable in his own unique way. A few days later, along with Eli Wallace, Chloe Armstrong, and Lieutenant Matthew Scott, Greer explored a planet with ruins. There, Greer was trapped when, after firing at a giant spider, a section of the tunnel the team was exploring collapsed. The team was stranded when Destiny jumped to FTL again. The next day, while searching for a way out of the ruins, Chloe believed she had found a map of the tunnel system. When Greer went down another tunnel to check her findings, it had collapsed on him, knocking him unconscious. Unable to dig him out, Scott reluctantly left with Eli and Chloe. Greer awoke later and managed to dig himself out, but by the time he reached the Stargate, his companions had already left. He set up a camp near the gate awaiting rescue, and was tormented by hallucinations of his father. He was eventually rescued by Lieutenant Vanessa James, who brought him back to the ship, though he was dismayed when Scott, Eli, and Chloe had not been rescued. When Destiny was sabotaged by the Nakai, allowing with Eli Wallace, Chloe Armstrong, and Lieutenant Matthew Scott to dial the Stargate, he was delighted to see Scott return unharmed. He would later command one of the teams patrolling the halls during the subsequent alien attack. When several crew members were infected by alien ticks that introduced hallucinations, Greer suffered one of the most dangerous psychological episodes of all the victims. Convinced that Dr. Nicholas Rush and Camille Ray were both plotting another mutiny, he hallucinated being ordered to stop them using deadly force, and nearly killed both. When Dr. Nicholas Rush had a dream containing residual memories from using the long-range communication device in conjunction with Colonel David Telford, the subsequent covert operation to again swap consciousness with Telford sparked an interrogation on Colonel Everett Young's part. Greer was posted at the entrance to Telford's quarters and given strict orders not to let anyone except Young through. After a verbal confrontation by Young, who accused Telford of conspiring with the Lucian Alliance against Stargate Command and the expedition, Telford attacked Young. This drew the immediate attention of Greer, who flew in swiftly and brutally beat Telford, inflicting multiple face wounds. Greer was pulled off of Telford by Lieutenant Matthew Scott, and both of them were ordered out of Telford's quarters. After receiving authorization from General Jack O'Neill to further the interrogation by any means necessary, Young saw fit to order Dr. Adam Brody to vent the atmosphere in Telford's room. As the oxygen levels lowered, Young continued to implore Telford to tell them the information they needed to know. Telford refused and suffocated to death. However, Telford's suffocation resulted in the breaking of the brainwashing that had been inflicted on him by the Lucian Alliance. As Telford suffocated, Camille Ray and Scott both protested Young's judgment, while Greer remained calm and waited for Young's next move. With the bonds of the brainwashing broken, Telford divulged that the Lucian Alliance was enacting a plan to dial the ninth chevron and board Destiny as they spoke. With defensive options minimal and little time to act, Young assigned Greer to a team with Scott as part of the ship's infantry defenses against the Lucian Alliance unwarranted boarding of Destiny. With control of Destiny essentially split in half between the expedition and the Lucian Alliance, Greer remained in the control interface room of Destiny. He was one of the soldiers who had not been captured by the Alliance. With the radiation burst from the nearby binary pulsar system growing more and more dangerous, Greer and Scott donned the ancient environmental suits, and after a negotiation between Camille Ray and Commander Kiva, passed through the Alliance-controlled territory of the ship to a hull breach that had been sealed off by the ship's shields. as they pass through the hull and go for a spacewalk in order to locate one of Destiny's shield emitters in order to adjust it to withstand the next burst of radiation from the pulsar. A coup erupts between the expedition and the Alliance, affecting control of the ship's systems and compromising Greer and Scott's ability to re-enter Destiny the way they exited. With the help of Eli Wallace, Rush, and Brody, Greer and Scott are able to run alongside the outside of the hull to an airlock in an unexplored area of the ship. However, they are not able to reach the airlock before the pulsar's next burst of radiation and were presumed dead by Rush and Brody. However, Scott radioed in moments after the burst passed, revealing that he and Greer had hid themselves on the underside of the ship. They returned to the airlock that they were trying to enter and were let in by Eli. After re-entering Destiny and regrouping with Eli, Chloe, Rush, and Brody, Scott and Greer decide to go inside on a reconnaissance mission to access the condition of the ship's personnel. While they are away, a small contingent of Alliance soldiers pinpoint Eli, Chloe, Rush, and Brody's location. But before any prisoners can be taken, Scott and Greer arrive on the scene and kill the Alliance soldiers. They decide to follow Rush's plan of sealing themselves off in the hydroponics lab, the safest location on Destiny from the radiation burst, and allow the next burst to kill off the remaining Alliance members. Scott and Greer make their way to the infirmary in order to grab Lieutenant Tamara Johannesson and Ray. Unfortunately, the Alliance launches an attack and pins them in the infirmary. Scott radios Rush and tells him to seal the door despite the fact that they aren't with them. Rush's true plan is effective, and the threat of death by radiation burst convinces the remaining Alliance forces to surrender control of Destiny back to the expedition. Greer is among the skeleton crew aboard Destiny who welcomes back the expedition that were evacuated off of Destiny by the Alliance, and was congratulated by Young when he arrives in the Destiny gate room. Greer was one of two possible candidates for a kidney transplant for Dr. Dale Volker, and he agreed to be the one to donate the kidney. When Lieutenant Tamara Johannesson needed to take bone marrow from him, he refused to be sedated due to a lack of medicine on board, even though it caused him great pain. When Volker got nervous about the operation and reminisced about watching the stars in his backyard, Greer took him to the Destiny Garden to look at the stars. With the help of Dr. Amanda Perry, the operation was a success, but Greer developed infections from it. Even though he wasn't supposed to, Greer walked around the ship despite being in a weakened state, but eventually recovered from his infections. After recovering, Greer was sent on a mission to a planet where he and Lieutenant Matthew Scott encountered a space deer, but Greer hesitated to kill one. When a predator attacked, Greer hesitated to fire as well, resulting in it attacking the camp and taking Lieutenant Tamara Johannesson and Corporal Reynolds captive. But his determination to keep after the predator kept him at odds with Colonel Everett Young. Eventually, Vero, Tessa, and the other Lucian Alliance personnel joined the hunt, to Greer's displeasure as he didn't trust them. The team fell into a trap, and Young and Lieutenant Vanessa James were hurt, while most of the Alliance team members were killed, and Greer admitted to James for his reasons for hesitating so much. He thought he had died during the operation, even though James figured that it was the effects of the medicine he was under and he didn't want to ever experience that again. After laying an ambush for the creature, which killed one, all the remaining members of the team except Vero and Greer were killed, leaving the two to rescue TJ and Reynolds alone. After locating the two, thanks to TJ fixing a radio and calling them, Greer had Vero create a distraction while he rescued the two. Even though Greer could have harmed the creature, he chose not to, as it was intelligent and willing to let TJ and Reynolds go after recognizing the same thing about them. And they hooked up with Vero, who escaped the creatures unharmed. On the way back to the gate, the group encountered another space deer, and Greer killed it to take back to the ship for dinner. As a result of this adventure, Vero earned Greer's trust and Greer's recommendation. Vero was set free and integrated into the crew. Later, Greer enters the stasis pod for the trip to the next galaxy. Hey, thank you for watching the history of Stargate. Special thanks to the Stargate Wiki for all information you heard today. Very special thanks to Royalty Free Tube for this fantastic background. Have a great day. Bye-bye.